Did you know that there is a legend that says, as long as the ravens remain on the grounds of the Tower of London, the kingdom will endure? Hello and welcome to World History Encyclopedia. My name is Kelly and today's episode is all about the long history of the Tower of London, from its establishment in the 11th century to its most famous residents and its popularity as a tourist stop today. World History Encyclopedia is a non-profit organisation and you can find us on Patreon, a brilliant site where you can support our work and receive exclusive benefits in return. Your support helps us create videos twice a week, so make sure to check it out at worldhistory.org/Patreon or via the Patreon link down below. The Tower of London is a castle located on the River Thames in London, which was first built in circa 1077 by William the Conqueror, also known as William, Duke of Normandy, and King William I of England. From its first construction in 1077 though, the Tower of London has had significant additions to it over the centuries. Today, the Tower of London is often referred to simply as the Tower in England, and over the course of its history has served as a fortress, palace, prison, treasury, arsenal, and zoo. The tower is steeped in English history, from dark reputations, fallen kings, and traitorous prisoners, and still stands in London today as a major tourist attraction that holds the crown jewels. In 1066, William the Conqueror won the Battle of Hastings in southeast England, defeating the Anglo-Saxon king Harold II and embarking on the Norman conquest of England. As the new King of England, William I wanted to secure his realm, and so he built medieval fortifications known as the Motte and Bailey Castle at strategic points throughout England, with London City being an obvious choice as it was the largest in the country. The beginning of the construction of what would become the Tower of London started in 1077 and became the first castle in England to have a freestanding tower keep. The construction of the tower continued until circa 1100, and by the time it was completed, the two-storey rectangular tower was so impressive it gave its name to the whole castle. In 1240, a whitewashing project occurred on the tower using white lime, which is when the keep received its now famous name, the White Tower. The castle was more than just the tower though, and it was surrounded by a curtain wall with corner towers with two of the sides of the wall using Roman walls that had been repaired by the Anglo-Saxons. For protection, a ditch and a wood and earth palisade were constructed on two sides, while the river protected the other two. In 1097 though, the palisade curtain was converted into stonework. A barbican fortification or fortification outpost was constructed to protect the main entrance to the castle and was built on a 90-degree angle from the entrance for extra security. This is known as the Lion Tower. Up until and including the reign of King Henry VIII in the 16th century, the tower was used as an occasional residence for English monarchs, and many of them made improvements and important additions. In the 12th century, the bell tower was added, a 50-metre wide tidal moat was dug, and the south side wall was extended. And all of these additions and changes meant that more money was spent on this complex than any other English castle besides Dover. During the reign of King Henry III of England between 1216 and 1272, the apartments of the castle were given special attention in ornamentation, and he even established a small zoo, although it is thought that King John, who reigned between 1199 and 1216, may have actually been the first to keep exotic animals at the castle. The Tower Menagerie, which was only closed down in 1835, at one time or another held animals such as leopards, lions, an elephant, and even a polar bear. During the reign of King Henry III, 3 D-shaped towers were added, as were the Bloody Tower and the Wakefield Tower, plus the freestanding Great Hall was rebuilt, but this structure is now gone. The 13th century saw a shift from a focus on military security to the comfort and interior ornamentation of the castle. The Queen's chamber was painted with roses, and the King's was painted with the royal arms. The permanent layout of the castle was achieved during the reign of Edward I of England, between 1272 and 1307, when he added the watergate known as St. Thomas's Tower, and the double circuit wall surrounding 3 sides of the complex. St. Thomas's Tower was used as royal chambers, but it also stood above Traitors' Gate, the entrance that state prisoners were escorted through. Edward also moved the royal treasuries to the castle, and he made it both the home of the royal archive and the kingdom's main mint, through a row of workshops with 30 furnaces known as Mint Street. The tower also became the place where England's main arsenal of weapons, arms, and armour were made and stored. Under Edward III, a new policy was instituted to ensure that the guards and officers stayed within the castle at night and had the gates locked between sunset and sunrise for the security of all the valuable assets housed at the complex. Between 1377 and 1661, the tower played an important role in the coronation of a new king, where the soon-to-be monarch would spend the night before their coronation in the castle, before being crowned the next day at Westminster Abbey. Beyond the tower being a place of residence and storage of important artifacts, it was also a famous prison, and throughout its long history, housed numerous inmates with famous names, although prior to the 20th century, and despite its notorious reputation, only 7 people were executed within the palace itself. Despite being commonly used as a prison, there weren't actually any cells built before 1695, but rather prisoners would just be housed in whichever chamber was available, were allowed servants and visitors, and were treated more as guests. This was because most of the people imprisoned in the tower were there for political or religious reasons. They were important people fallen from the grace of the reigning monarch. Despite not being held in cells, they were still imprisoned, and sometimes prisoners were tortured for confessions, as with Guy Fawkes in 1605, who endured 10 days of torture before confessing to the failed gunpowder plot to blow up Parliament. Other famous prisoners of the Tower include Henry VI of England, who was imprisoned for 9 years during the Wars of the Roses. Although he was eventually freed by the Lancastrian army, he found himself back in the prison after the Yorkist king, Edward IV, was placed back on England's throne, and just 1 month after he was re-imprisoned, he was most likely murdered. 2 of the most famous prisoners of the Tower, known as the Princes of the Tower, were the 2 young sons of King Edward IV, put there by their uncle Richard of Gloucester, who became Richard III of England. 2 months after the young princes were imprisoned, they vanished and were presumed murdered, and everyone, including the playwright William Shakespeare, pointed their fingers at Richard the usurper king. The skeletons of 2 youths were discovered near the Tower of London in 1674, when the fore building was demolished. The remains were identified as the young princes and reinterred at Westminster Abbey. The remains were re-examined in 1993 using modern forensic methods, and were confirmed to be males of similar age to the princes of the Tower. The ghosts of the 2 princes are said to haunt the Tower to this day, as is the ghost of another famous prisoner, Anne Boleyn. Yes, women were also held in the Tower, with 2 of Henry VIII's wives being held and executed there. First Queen of England, Anne Boleyn, Henry's second wife, was held there under the charges of adultery and plotting to poison her husband, charges that she denied. Anne was executed on the castle's lawn, known as the Tower Green, and then Henry's 5th wife, Catherine Howard, met the exact same fate. Even Henry's daughter Elizabeth, who would become Queen Elizabeth I, spent a few months in the Tower when she was still a princess, sent there by her suspicious half-sister, Queen Mary I of England. One man, the adventurer Sir Walter Raleigh, found himself in the Tower not once, but 3 times over the course of his life. Once for marrying a lady without the permission of the Queen, once for plotting against James I, and finally because he violated a treaty with Spain while he was searching South America for El Dorado. Of course, there were even some prisoners who managed to escape, with 37 people having got away, even if some of their freedom was only temporary. Among the most popular escape tales is that of Ranulph Flambard, a bishop under William II, imprisoned in 1101 by William's successor, Henry I, for embezzlement. According to legend, Ranulph had a length of rope smuggled into the tower in a cask of wine, got his guards drunk until they passed out, and then scurried down the rope from an open window and fled to safety in France. He was later pardoned and returned to England, and is best known today as the first recorded prisoner of the Tower and also the first to escape. After the medieval period, the main uses for the tower shifted from royal residences to an armoury, barracks, storehouse and prison. The buildings came to be so filled with materials for war that they were bursting at the seams, with the top floor of the White Tower literally collapsing under the weight of 2,000 barrels of gunpowder in 1691. It was lucky no explosion followed the collapse. As the fortress became redundant in its military capacity, it began to attract visitors. From the 1660s, the public were able to view the crown jewels that were put on display there. In the 19th century, the Tower became a major military headquarters, with the Waterloo Barracks being added in 1845, which is today the headquarters for the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. The Tower was lucky to remain unscathed during the Great Fire of London in September of 1666, but a fire did destroy the Grand Storehouse in 1841, and some of the outer buildings were destroyed in the Second World War. The Royal Bodyguard, officially known as the Yeomen of the Guard, but have been referred to as Beefeaters since the 17th century, have been the guardians of the Tower since sometime in the 15th century. They can still be found at the Tower today, patrolling the grounds and acting as tour guides. If you were to visit the Tower today, you would also find the Ravens. It is not known when the Ravens arrived at the Tower, but the legend is that as long as the Ravens remain there, the kingdom will endure. Have you visited the Tower of London? What was your experience? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on our new videos published every single week. This video was brought to you by World History Encyclopedia. For more great articles and interactive content, head to our website via the link below. If you like my sweater, you can find this design and a bunch more in our shop at worldhistory.store, or you can find a link for it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon with another video.